So I see people are rolling in. Good to see.
Yeah, I was just going to say with that, that's probably as good a hint to start as any. So I think with that, we'll start our webinar. Thank you for everyone joining, and I'm sure we'll get a couple that continue to join as we progress through. So the focus of today's webinar is SolarWinds delivering what your business needs, as you can see there. Quick introductions. My name is Scott Green. You'll see my mugshot there, looking considerably more groomed and less bouffon, as I probably do today. Yes, same shirt. Well, actually, I realised before we started this, Mark, that we haven't actually met in person. So the only times we've seen each other is me looking overgrown and scruffy, but today overgrown and scruffy in a shirt. So yes, I'm one of the account managers here at Prosperon Networks. I'm joined today by Mark Roberts, as you can see, who's our technical director.
Good morning, everyone.
Sorry, I'll tell you.
That's all right. I'll just jump in and say good morning because I'm polite like that.
Sorry. Some of you may be familiar with his name and face. He may have worked with you in your installations, or you may have seen him on some of these webinars. And right at the top there, you can see there are just a few links to make you aware of. Like today's webinar, we post these webinars on our YouTube channel. You may already be aware, but there may be some that you may want to check out following this. Usual places you can find us on our socials, LinkedIn and Twitter. So we've got a good following in those places. And our blogs you can find on our new website. Same place as the old one, but that's where we share some valuable insights as well. And any feedback on the new website, very, very welcome. So, agenda for today is effectively to illustrate the difference between what comes as default as an installation and what you can achieve with some customization. So those of you who have been on these webinars before, you'll know that we'll start by giving you a quick introduction of Prosperon, more for the benefit of those that perhaps this is their first webinar and not particularly aware of who we are and what we do. I'll try not to take too much of your time with this, aiming for about 5 minutes. And then we'll take you through a comparison of what we commonly see in deployments, what you get as default, and what some of the common issues you might find with this are. And then we'll take you through to draw a comparison against some of the areas that you can customize to perhaps get more out of the business and serve the business objectives better. So a lot of you on the webinar today, and some of you may have struggled in this area already, and really customizing the platform, making sure it's tailored and customized to your organization is, we would view, as one of the most important areas of the Orion platform. So hopefully today we can share some insights with you that will prove valuable. Then, of course, we'll have a Q&A section at the end. So a little bit of housekeeping. We'll have a couple of polls throughout the course of this webinar to keep you all interested, and we'd really encourage you to take part in that. On the right-hand side of your screen, there's an opportunity for you to actually ask questions in real time. So we'd recommend that you use the questions section, and then we'll try to either answer those as we progress through the webinar, or come to those at the end, or answer in line. And lastly, as I mentioned, on the YouTube page, that we will post a copy of this, which we made available after we've finished going through it. So, as I mentioned, Prosperon at a glance. For some of you that may be new to us, we are the leading UK authority on deploying, tuning, and training users of the SolarWinds products. So you'll see here on the screen some of the things that we're really, really proud of. So we've been a partner with SolarWinds and worked with them over the last 16 years. Obviously, some other vendors as well, but SolarWinds is one of our real focus areas. So on the professional service front, we provide nationally and internationally into Europe and the Middle East over 700 days of professional services per annum now. So that's something that, of course, we're really proud of in terms of being able to help some of you guys. But we do have a lot more to us than just professional services. So support, some of you we probably take care of with our support desk. Some of you will have likely spoken to our support engineers in terms of getting some of the issues that you're facing resolved. A lot of time we're doing that without the assistance of the vendor, which again just highlights our expertise. On the bottom row there, you can see some details about our engineers. So our engineers are, of course, accredited by SolarWinds. Some of our engineers are also security cleared, so we have the ability to work on some of even the most sensitive platforms. Over the years, we've been awarded by SolarWinds with all sorts of different awards. Of course, we're very proud to have been awarded with the Technical Excellence Awards for some of the deployments that we've taken part in. And a couple of our engineers are MVPs for the THWAC community. So if you are new to SolarWinds or you are not aware of what THWAC is the community of SolarWinds users hosted on the SolarWinds website, where people can contribute ideas, share their user experience and knowledge, and our engineers take part in that and have, by doing so, been awarded the MVP status. So in terms of our presence at SolarWinds, obviously we've been working with them for some time, and as I mentioned, that's a key focus area for us. But you'll also see the NetBrain logo there, which is one of the other vendors that we work with. So we have had a session with those, another webinar which you can access via YouTube, covering NetBrain, which is all around automation, documenting, visualizing the network, and giving you the ability and making it really easy to solve problems. Well, there's also the ability to bring SolarWinds data into that platform and share data between the two. So that's a really valuable tool. And there's a session, as I mentioned, that you can check out on our YouTube channel to see more if that's something that's of interest. So very quickly on our next slide, about the range of services we provide. We're able to provide services for whatever part of the SolarWinds journey you're on. Maybe that's embarking on an implementation for the first time, and of course we get involved in a lot of different deployments of all different types, right from just getting the basics done right to give you a sort of a running start, right up to a full production implementation, providing an all-singing, all-dancing Orion platform, where we work really closely with you and often include knowledge transfer within the deployment to empower your users to pick that up and run with it. On the consultancy side, we're very aware that some of you may have been using SolarWinds for a long time, and for whatever reason, perhaps due to changing priorities, due to restrictions internally, such as resource, time, perhaps even some knowledge on some of the newer features, for whatever reason, you may not have had the time and the opportunity to get the platform exactly as you'd like it. Commonly, this might be alerting. Perhaps it's gone stale around the SolarWinds versioning. Taking advantage of new features within those newer versions, and maybe in terms of perhaps working on maps, reporting, dashboard, things like that. So that's where the consultancy services can come in for people who have existing platforms. The other part is around the system integration side of things. So we're being asked more and more to bring other solutions within SolarWinds, get them talking to each other, working together, and very commonly, this might be service desk integrations. And then we've got the training areas. So we provide a host of different training services, ranging from the administrator courses, giving users the training they need to get the accredited professional status, but also for users who perhaps don't need that administrator level training. They perhaps could be NOC users, people that need to know how to navigate through the solution. They could also be management roles who may need to just know specific areas within the tool. So it's something that we've seen a requirement for over time and introduced these different training courses to cater for that. So we have the administrator courses, which I mentioned, user level courses. We can, of course, provide training around sort of bespoke areas and sort of build a bespoke course for you. And then we have master classes around particular areas such as alerting and reporting that are dedicated and deep dive in those areas. Support we mentioned in our last slide. Many of you may be customers of ours already, so we'll be enjoying the support service we provide. I think the figure was 800 tickets per annum we're sort of dealing with at the moment. And of course, we're not just proud of that number, that we've got the capacity to handle those, but also the ability to service those within our own right without having to look to SolarWinds to get involved. So often enough for you guys, that translates into a quicker resolution for some of those issues. And lastly, the health check. So perhaps relevant to today's presentation or today's webinar, This is a review of your platform, so where we will take a look at the aspects of your Orion platform, how it's installed, how stable the platform is, the features you're using, for example, how you're getting on with alerting, where you are with dashboard views, things like that, whether people are getting the right views, and all of these things are then covered in a report following the health check, so where it clearly outlines all of the aspects of that Orion platform that you can that can be improved upon. So I think that brings us through, fairly true to my word, about 5 minutes on that section. I think that brings us through to our first poll now.
Yeah, let's get some traction.
Yes. So
just a warm up here, isn't it? Just obviously in terms of the topic we're talking about today, Scott, just kind of see where people are.
Absolutely.
What we try and do with our webinars is identify what our users want. So actually, if you have thoughts and ideas on what you'd like to see us do in our webinars, please put that into the chat. But so we want to make sure that we do things that you're going to benefit from, and that's why we get such good attendance.
So starting to see some answers come in now.
Okay. Okay, so immediately both of the ones that are knowing that things can be better. Okay, good to see we've got quite a lot of people coming in with they're happy with what the SolarWinds is delivering, and actually that's taken the lead now. So that's really good to see. So from our exposure and experience, obviously the customers we've got on this session we've been working with, so we know that we're helping you guys get into that place, whether it's that training or professional service delivery. Okay, thank you. Let's close that. So there we go. We've got the results come in. So as I say, it's pretty even between the top three, and certainly that one at the top was the most important one. We really don't want to see anybody, and that's come about. Excellent. So if you want to,
yeah, of course.
Okay, I'll let you drive if that's okay, Scott.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so from my perspective, obviously, my team, we see lots of installations, whether it's helping customers review their platform, whether it's looking at the professional service delivery. And so we're kind of just putting a few things together here in this webinar today on the kind of common things that we see. And I think the slides got stuck as you've got a quizzical look on your face, Scott.
Has it? I thought,
seems to have paused.
Not as animated as I was hoping.
There's certainly some more images. There we go. Look,
there we go.
And so what we're going to have a look at, I want to try and keep the slide deck as short as possible and get into the demos and show you the kind of things that we see, the kind of thought processes and ideas that you should be kind of getting around a table and thinking about how you can improve your platform, making it really fit your business needs, your operational needs, and absolutely is tuned to the people that are using it. These are going to be service desks, these are going to be ops teams, they're going to be escalation teams, they're going to be managers, they're also going to be architects using data for planning. So using the application to allow all of those different roles to get that maximum benefit is something that you should be looking at. For those people that are on the call that are Orion administrators, that it's their responsibility to look after that SolarWinds Orion platform. You are essentially delivering a service to the business. Now, it may be a service that you are benefiting from directly because you're also, as part of your role, looking after systems or infrastructure or whatever. But there are also a lot of people in the organization who should be receiving a good quality service. And obviously, we want to give you some information, some guidance, some ideas on how that can be achieved. So in terms of the next slide, what we've just kind of highlighted here is the first thing you do when you install SolarWinds Orion. Now, that process alone is literally a couple of hours of effort. But the first thing you do when you log on to Orion is this little splash screen will come up. It will say, okay, you've got it installed. What you want to do now is populate. And making sure that your device population across your owned modules. So I've got a number of examples here of the modules that you may or may not have, and the aspects around populating. So clearly in terms of Orion NPM, that kind of core function, adding devices. defining the monitoring profile for them is the first thing you need to be looking at. Getting your servers, your network devices, your virtualization infrastructure populated. If you have the NCM license for device configuration management, providing the necessary credentials and communication settings to allow Orion to go and do the backups of the configurations. And then that exposes all the analysis that you get from that. And then with the other modules is whether it's adding configuration, whether it's assigning existing functionality. So in SAM, the application monitoring, and the SCM, the server configuration monitoring, they're going to be ones where you've already added the device. You've done that in the Orion core, the NPM function, and now you're saying, okay, I want to apply known capabilities of Orion to that, whether it's a SAM template, whether it's default profiles in SCM or creating new ones. They're going to be the things that you're going to want to assign. The next two there are things like what we refer to as passive data. So a lot of the data that we collect is actively polled. We're saying to Orion, go and collect this every X number of minutes because I want to identify if it's got a bad number on it, a bad value, is it off, is it down? Whereas the flow and the trap and syslog protocols are more passive. Orion is just going to receive them and process the data that the devices are configured to send. So identifying with NetFlow which sources in your environment are candidates for the bandwidth analysis, which devices are going to have event data which is relevant for an operational user to look at. So things like your WAN, your virtualization if you have vMAN, your firewalls. So when issues change, when your policy changes on your firewall, when a deny takes place on one of those policies, that's data which is going to help you operationally. Certainly with that data of events, it's reinforcing the poll data. If NCM is doing backups of a config and a syslog comes in to say a config's changed, well, NCM will use that as a trigger point to go and do a live download of the config, for example. So these are little things that are going to start layering up and improve the capability.
You've put down the bottom there, Mark, that doing this gives a huge benefit. Can you give some context around what our viewers can expect, perhaps, if from going through some of this customization?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where within kind of 1 or 2 days, literally 1 day is sufficient for most organizations of a kind of medium size, where if you've got that inventory to populate across these modules and you spend that initial time, the default views, the default alerts, the default reports will all start being populated. So you'll get a huge amount of benefit just from population. What I hope to show and demonstrate in the rest of the session, certainly when I get into the demo area, is when you get that framework, it's a great starting point. You can then build upon that and really make it sing. So I would say within the first round of installing Orion, populating it with the infrastructure and the systems you want to monitor, you're now going to be in a position where you're kind of getting 60, 70% functionality straight away. Then the time comes in terms of really making the platform sing for you.
Right, okay.
If we go to the next, thank you. Okay, so certainly what we see when we are working with customers, and as I said, this is a number of different mechanisms, whether it's our professional services delivery, whether it's our health checks, either the free versions that we give for users with maintenance with us, or what we refer to as the paid health check, where we're kind of actively engaged. There is a significant difference in there. When we do the full health check, we are having workshops with customers. We're kind of telling you what you should be doing. We're receiving information about where the customer would like to take Orion, what the pain points are, what it's not doing well, what it is doing well. So collectively, we can guide and help identify what that path is, and obviously allow the customer to begin walking down that path to that improvement. But actually, you'll see in that first bullet point, what we often see is population is all that gets done. Yeah, so the devices get added, and the default views will be used, and the default alerts will be in place, and no custom properties will be configured and populated. So these kind of things, because we see so often, was pretty much the catalyst for this webinar, actually. I wanted to make sure that we kind of provided this insight on the things that we see and the things that can be very quickly applied for improvement. Obviously, this kind of terminology of low-hanging fruit. You know what it's like when you're decorating, yeah. When you're preparing the wall to paint it, and you're stripping things down so it's going to have a good finish. They're the bits that all take time. Putting that final coat on there, that's the kind of stand back and admire your handiwork. And at that point, you try and forget all of the pain that you've gone through to get to there. It's a very similar kind of thing here. Those kind of really good things that are going to give a lot of benefits can be quickly put in place. And then the kind of more advanced things, the real tuning, is the thing that takes a little bit longer, but then really brings the value and the benefits of owning such a platform. I've mentioned a couple of things here with alerts. So there are things that if I'm kind of looking at a customer, if I'm doing an engagement, I'm doing a review on what their as-is position is, I can very quickly tell within a few minutes how active they use Orion, what their level of involvement is with it, whether it's the fact that operationally they're taking data out, or whether the Orion administrator is very active. So if I, for example, go to the active alerts list and I see that there are aged alerts, whether it's a matter of 2 weeks ago or indeed 2 years ago, they are common, because that obviously has alerting in there. Alerting, we know, is the biggest thing in terms of Orion and making it work. And the same for any monitoring solution. Out of the box functionality will generate a lot of alerts because it's not tuned to your environment. It's base numbers that SolarWinds don't know what you should have. They don't know what's relevant for you. And so you need to be able to tune them. So just looking at that list, as I say, immediately we can identify. Also, that is an indication of a stale configuration. Certainly when we are looking at devices that are unknown, objects that are in an unknown status or down. So again, if I look at the active alerts and I see that there's a device that's been down for 200 days, well, either that device was really not important to the business and it's not doing anything, or more likely it's been decommissioned, or its address has changed, or its function is no longer valid and should be removed. So that's just kind of indication that that ownership and that care and attention, that time ability, fundamentally, do the owners have time to manage Orion fully? Are there processes in place to keep things clean and up to date and aligned to the business needs? So again, these are kind of observations that can really bring that kind of thing to the surface. The next things are kind of the kind of acceleration, the advanced elements around making it work for the business, the operational function. So if I look at custom properties, if I can see that there's gaps in the data quality, if the number of custom properties are not big, i.e. there's no real additions to the default ones, again, I can tell whether it's a knowledge, whether it's a time thing, that is an indication that big improvements can be applied to the platform. We've done several webinars on custom properties, for example, and we've talked about the importance of those. They work all the way through the system, whether it's in the views, alerts, reports, access controls, information display. It's really, really critical, and that is a base foundation. Go to the next slide.
Sorry to get, just before we move on, sorry to get you to clarify once again. I know that obviously as an account manager, and apologies for the the account manager bringing this up, but I know there is a difference between the free health check and the paid health check, but sometimes it's something that I'm not confident that I'm explaining well enough, or perhaps even understanding. So you did give a brief explanation earlier, and obviously that a health check of any type is a great place to start if something, if there's something being customized. But could you give a little bit more detail on, perhaps from a technical perspective, how the two types of health check would differ, what people get out of it?
Okay. So the free health check, as I say, we provide that as a value add. Customers that buy maintenance and licensing through us each year get access to that service. And it's a service very much focused around, is your platform running healthily? We'll look at the kind of KPIs of Orion. our services have got problems, the connections to the database, is the website running slow, and we'll kind of give that feedback. So actually, on the slide there on the right hand side, you can see just about the kind of format for that report. We're kind of giving a bullet point. We've got defined things that we review, we feed back to the customer in this written form, and we'll also go through it verbally to highlight that maybe the versions are out of date, or that the SQL configuration is not right for max stops or whatever. So it's a very much a formulated delivery mechanism, because obviously we do a lot of them, and they are to be used as guides. We also do take the time to look into and give kind of feedback. So some of the things that I'll be showing today, for example, will be that the group definitions are not well structured, that the custom properties have got lots of gaps in their data quality. And it's pretty much it. We'll stop there. It's a review, it's an identify, it's a feedback. The full health check is where we are actively engaged. We talk to the customer. So we often will have a workshop with the stakeholders, get around a table, or in this case, Teams or whatever, and discuss what we find in the review in more detail. So we'll do the platform review, we'll make notes on it, we'll take that into the workshop, and we'll say, okay, these are our findings. What are your requirements? Where do you want to get to? Where is it not working? And collectively, as I say, we demonstrate, we show by example, we identify and discuss about the value of these things, because we may highlight that something's not configured well or is not providing good service. And it may be the fact it's 3 days of our effort to help the customer through it. And obviously that discussion is about, well, is there value in that? Are they going to get benefit from it? So they can then determine how far they then take those changes. So it's a lot more involved. It's a two-way communication. It typically lasts for a day to 2 days.
So would I be right in thinking then free health check is more of a generalized best practice, not necessarily aligned with business objectives, but with what we know to be the best way to run Orion, whereas the paid health check is more a case of aligning that with the business objectives. You know, these areas could be working better because you want this outcome.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Perfect.
Okay, and so last slide, I promise. So kind of just put an overview where you are today. So very much actually off the back of what we've just said there, what is your current position? Identifying where you are today and identifying where you would like to get to. That is going to give you visibility of the path that you need to take, where you need to look at improvements, where things are not working quite well for you. And a lot of that is going to be things like alert generation. Yeah, I said it from the beginning, and if you've been on my previous webinars, it's a big soapbox of mine, because the fundamental principle of a monitoring solution is to inform you of issues, or to tell you that there are things that need improving, to use that data for the benefit of your organization. And so the alerting that comes out of it is a critical function of that. If you have 100 alerts coming out to a day into an email mailbox, God forbid, you're in that situation where you're going to ignore them. You're not going to look at them because you're just overwhelmed with it. So analyzing the alert generation, closing that down and tuning it so that 100 alerts, the 80% of it gets thrown away and those alerts don't get generated, so you can concentrate on the 20 that actually need someone reviewing it, actioning it, and making things resolved. Also, as I said, in terms of our paid health check, it is just getting around a table. So get your stakeholders, get the people that are consuming the service Orion as a function, the SMEs of the technology stacks that you have. Identify how they can benefit. If you've got your existing licensing is allowing you to do server and application monitoring, then have you got all of your key applications in there? Have you got them monitored to the level where when there are problems, your monitoring solution tells you? So when you get the service desk involved and you kind of say, okay, well, let's have a look at your tickets. Well, okay, I can see 10 tickets here where people are raising common things on the phone on an internal support ticket, which really your monitoring solution should have alerted you to. Yeah. My ethos here is the service desk, when they receive a call from a user to say that something's not working, they should be saying, yes, we're aware of it and we're actively working on it. Not, oh, thank you for that information, we'll investigate. Yeah. And then all of that then will feed into defining a project. What are you actually going to benefit from? What does that look like? And take that forward.
So,
okay.
Sorry, just for someone who's sat here thinking they want to get cracking on this themselves, what are the sort of actions people could take that would have the biggest impact?
Biggest impact? Oh, that's a good question. Certainly the reviewing of the devices that you've got populated. Have you got all your infrastructure monitored? Have you got your applications? Have you got the objects? Have you got IPAM configured with your network schemas? Have you got processes around how people use the IP data? But then the big one, once you've started populating it, is your data profiles, your monitoring profiles. It's like, are you collecting all the data that tells you when a particular system or a technology service, whether this is owned by you and managed by you, whether this is a SaaS solution, whether it's a cloud solution, it technically doesn't matter. That really just comes down to the depth of visibility that you can get. So observability. Yeah. Have you got the data to observe the issues that you've got? And then that will then feed on to, are you presenting it well? Are you alerting on it well? So they are the fundamental pillars: data capture, data presentation, and data alerting for me.
Cool.
Lots of dovetail things in between there, but yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to take over ownership here. Okay, if you can just confirm that you can see my dashboard.
Yeah, I can.
Fabulous. Okay, so what I wanted to do, as I was just take the audience through some kind of common scenarios that we're going to look at in terms of configuration items. So I've got one of our demo platforms here. We've got a plain vanilla, Orion installation. And this is obviously going to allow me to show you the out of the box, day one, installed, start populating it. So we've put a few devices in here just to give some substance to it. But we've not touched anything else. So I want to use this as a reference. And I might also touch on the Orion demo online. So this is a publicly available site. So you can go to it and have a play and see how other things are done. There are some areas here which are really good, and other areas which is just demo data and not particularly referenced, but still a useful resource. So the first thing here is our default summary homepage. Yeah. So when we first log into Orion and we've populated it, this is the page that you're going to get shown when you log in. And immediately you can see some things. You've got placeholders. You've got suggestion here to put a map. You've got some starting points. Okay, we've got NCM installed. So it's saying, okay, well, populate. Yeah, define which devices are appropriate for NCM management. Do you want to include an approval system? So engineers, before they are allowed to make live changes, a moderator has to review it. Have you got the core settings in place? Have you got all of the credentials? Okay, once you've read it, remove it. You'll be surprised. And those of you that are on the webinar, have a look at your installation. Navigate through some of the pages and see if you've got those on there. Read it, confirm, remove it. Yeah, it's not something that obviously should be there for permanency. So then we've got layout. So one of the first things I do when I used to go on site, it seems such a long time ago now. So I go to an office and I walk around the IT department as I'm going into the kind of meeting room or whatever it may be. I'm looking at the resolutions of the screens. Have they got large screens with large resolutions? Because here we've got nearly half of the space is wasted. Yeah, we've got the columns over here that we could benefit from. So immediately I'm thinking in terms of, okay, what is my layout going to look like? I've got a 3-column layout. So on here, I've got now my 3-column layout. I've got data being presented in a way which I can consume it better. What is important to me? What are the priorities? Well, for me, I've got some of my key infrastructure populated on a map. This is utilizing, actually, to highlight, this is utilizing the new web-based maps rather than Network Atlas, which this is a placeholder for. And this would be an example of. Our preference very strongly now is to utilize these maps. We've kept this as a very simplistic logical network diagram, but you can really make this very pretty. Now, the benefit of these new maps is that we've got the kind of performance data easily displayed on here. So connectivity, yeah, this is automatically populated. I can see how much traffic is being consumed, how many, what packet loss there is. I've also spent a little bit of time putting custom labels on here, so I'm making it far more informative. We've got some interactivity function here. So on this map, just an example of the fact that we can have weather functions. So these are just overlays that have been coded in. So in this case, we can see some elements around weather factors. Yeah. So you may look at this and go, well, that's very pretty, Mark. That's really not relevant for you. And for the vast majority of customers, absolutely not. But if you're running North Sea oil rigs, if you're using laser links, if you're using radio signals, this can have a huge impact. So just kind of things that can be achieved. So as we're looking through the display, you can see that I've got information. I've got key information from each of my modules. So configuration changes that have taken place, performance of applications, of my business applications. I've got WAN utilization. Yeah? So this is one of my most important metrics in an environment to see if I've got network performance issues. So it's identifying what the data should be to present to the audiences. If we have a look at some of the other functionality that we've got here. So one of the areas that we can look at actually is our groups. So if I come down into manage groups, what we can see here is we've got a number of groups. And this is the kind of management screen. And what I wanted to start off on here is highlighting what we pretty much see on 80-ish% of the installations. So if we have a look at this definition, so what we've got is the definition, and then what we will always tend to see, as say 80% of the time, is the fact that the customer has put static objects here. It's obvious that this is why, is because when you first come into this screen, this is what you get to see. If I can find the ends, there we go. So this is the screen that you get when you first hit this page. So immediately you're being told, okay, populate this group with your objects. And so it's natural for people to go down this path. For us, this is not a best practice topology. So in this example, I may be creating a group that I want to put a service function in this case, SQL service. But the reality is, if I added a SQL server, and you can see that we have 4, then the other devices, the other SQL servers are not going to be added. So maybe I just need to come in and choose this and select it. So here, if I find my other SQL server, click on add, put it over there, submit, happy days. But that's me manually coming in and putting it in. What I want to highlight here is use dynamic groups. So here, in your nodes, just put the necessary filter. Now, this may be the fact that the name of the device contains SQL. Yeah. So now this object is going to get populated with all of my SQL servers. And the beauty of this is, if ever I add a new SQL server, another commissioned SQL server, if the name of the device has got SQL in it, immediately it's going to add it to this group. I don't need to edit it. What we do talk about with customers at this stage is what is the appropriate filter. Yeah, so we'll leave that here in terms of this webinar, but the ability for this automation, this logic statement, to be continual, to work under additional circumstances. So in this case, naming convention, if it's very strictly observed, great. It's the easiest and most complete one that's likely to be. Otherwise, we would probably look at using custom properties, yeah, because it's easier to manage and maintain custom properties for this. So just immediately with that, when we're then looking at our group definition, and if I try and find, somebody's interestingly taken that off of the menu. I hadn't noticed that when I did my practice run. So what you can see here is we've got a group topology. that I have built a London WAN and LAN group. So this is, again, if those customers that we've worked with, you will understand that we propose this quite often to customers. So now we have the ability to say, okay, this is the LAN layer, this is the edge layer, and here's our LAN devices, because then we'll then carry this topology into our dependencies. So when we build our dependency rule, this is the parent, this is the child, and automatically we've got alert suppression. If our WAN device layer goes down, we're going to suppress all the alerts for the 150 devices that sit behind those routers at the London location, because those devices aren't necessarily down. We just can't poll them. So again, it's just that intelligence of alert control capabilities. Speaking of custom properties, so I'm going to go to this one and then quickly go over here before you have a look. So this is the default installation. If I go to the Manage Custom Property area, you will see that there are a number of provided ones out of the box. So going back to the slide, I indicated that SolarWinds are really nice. They give you starting points. For example, if you were to add a new custom property and you say, okay, I want to do this on the node object type, SolarWinds again are giving you a number of examples of things that you may want to consider. Because custom properties are so fundamental to a good, well-rounded, well-built installation of Orion, we work a lot with customers on making sure that these are identified, that we have good data quality. They're obviously in all of our health check reports. And so here in our installation, you'll see that we have a number more. And so things like priority and device type, where we've got a couple of them there actually because of previous work with those things. But if, for example, when somebody receives an alert or is looking at a node detail page in Orion, if they know immediately, okay, this is a load balancer, this is a firewall, this is a core switch versus an access switch, do they have that knowledge? Are they on the service desk? Do they have that level of visibility and understanding? Well, the more that we can provide information to the users that may not have that, we often will create a site entry. Yeah. So rather than it being city-based, we could have a site name because there's 3 different locations in London, for example. So site. It might be the fact that we've got a site and a site code. Including this information because when people receive it, they can interpret that efficiently and quickly. This is clearly going to be beneficial. And also, what is the appropriate thing in terms of those filters? So here is an example. We've got a custom property that's defined for the node as priority, and we have the same in the interface custom properties because we're using that in the alerting to say, well, actually, out of hours, I only want P1 devices to generate an alert that sends creates an incident in ServiceNow or whatever it may be. There is a difference between how we handle things between a P1 device and a P5 device. Yeah, that P5 device may be a print server. Well, the business is not going to stop working if a printer goes down. So we're going to handle things in different ways. So we're building the framework to allow this to happen. So from here, we're going to go on to the big subject of alerting. So again, with both of these, highlighting here the out-of-the-box capability. Well, I have not done anything, I promise, in terms of configuration on this installation here. And it's generated 27 alerts. Yep, done nothing. Now, they may all be genuine alerts. I may need to go and deal with my indexes on a database, absolutely. But let's say if this number here, so let's say when we look at the installation, I come in and I do a sort by active time. If that's many days old, then, and it's not acknowledged and there's no workflow on it, then is it important? Should that custom app be being alerted on it? Or is it an indication that the alerting that Orion is generated is just not being trusted and there's not enough confidence in it? Okay, restore that. Make the Orion and your monitoring solution, whatever it may be, really work for you. You need to be able to trust the alerting that comes out. So if we go into the manage alerts, I'm just going to kind of give a couple of quick tips of things to look at first of all. One of them here is disable the ones that you don't need. So, okay, this is the installation with all of the modules in, and therefore Orion has installed 243 out-of-the-box alert definitions, and 124 of them are enabled. So there's going to be some activity. There's going to be things that are going to get added to our list. There's also going to be a lot of polling into the database asking if I have exceeded my AWS CloudWatch polling limit. We don't run AWS for anything active. It's a playground for us. There's no production systems on there. I don't want to monitor it. I've got no need to monitor it. So all of these AWS things, well, find them all and disable them. Yeah, it's hurting your Orion server. It's doing database queries every minute to see if these values are over threshold. Well, they're not, because I've not populated that data set. So clean them up. I don't have F5s. Disable them. I'm not interested in something else in here, duplex mismatches for whatever reason. So disable them. Make them focus on what you do want to get. I also indicated in the slide that we often see customers disable them. So we've had installations where we'll look at them and there's 2 alerts that are enabled. We have the obvious conversation, why only two alerts? And it's like, yeah, we were overwhelmed, and so we turn them all off. That's not allowing the monitoring solution to give you the function that you can benefit from. SolarWinds has huge power. You can see just the level of conditions that are out of the box. So use that, take advantage of that. If it's not tuned, identify why. Edit it. I was doing a session yesterday with a customer and demonstrating that the out-of-the-box interface transmit utilization is a bad alert. Change it to something which is relevant. So actually, if I just come in here and if I, which one should I do? The CPU one. So here you can see, well, actually, first of all, you can see that we've prefixed. Yep, so this may be production. In this case, we use Prosperon because this is part of our library that we import for our customers when we do services. And so here, the condition is completely different to the out-of-the-box condition. So here, if we do the equivalent, and I think it's going to be this one here. So we've got a very black and white when it loads. We've got a very black and white example here where the number, yeah, so CPU load is greater than 80. Every single device that is defined as a server is going to trigger this alert if one poll goes over 80. That's not an alert condition. So you can quickly see here that we've got a change of reference. So we're actually saying only when it's gone over its critical value. And each object can have individual critical values and thresholds. We've got conditions to check the status. We were actually only interested if this is under sustained high CPU load. Now we are in a controlled arena. Okay, my alerting for high CPU is now going to go down from hundreds over a given period to the ones that actually need somebody to look at it and manage it. I've just noticed on the screen that we don't have many questions coming in at the moment. I would encourage you to ask some. So this is something that we can include and answer as we go through this as relevant. So please use the question panel in the GoToMeeting window to put some questions across to us. Another thing that we don't see used as well as it really should is Netpath. So this is something which is going to give you the visibility of how your infrastructure connects to a service. In this case, Office 365 to Outlook over port 443. And so this is that kind of visual trace route. We are looking here at our path. We can see that we're traversing different networks here. You can see here we've got an AS network. Oh, that means keep doing that. And so where we're looking at our pathing, we can now see that we hit certain networks. We can validate that we've got endpoints. And from a connectivity and performance point of view, we can see the quality of network communication to that. So if I saw poor performance on one of these, I can immediately speak to the provider. Yeah, maybe this is a provider we don't have knowledge or understanding that we're even traversing their network. Well, BGP lookups are allowing us to get that information, and now I could write a message to this network provider, this backbone provider, to say, look, I'm seeing poor performance when we traverse your network using this protocol between these 2 points. Genuinely, providers are actioning this. They are using communication to help identify that they've got issues that are affecting their users. Okay, I wanted to finish in terms of subjects on kind of views. So again, the alerting and the views are big elements around this. And draw your attention to the fact that, let's say, we've got these out-of-the-box pages. Yeah. So if I hover over this, you can see that we've got some custom summary sample pages. Yeah. SolarWinds have put some placeholders in that we've got under network configuration, under server configuration, these default pages that, again, have got objects on them that are laid out with different priorities that possibly are working for you. And a big one here is the ability to create service-focused pages. So you can see on our menu, we have some examples of kind of business critical. So if we were running an e-commerce website, this is a demo site that we use, that's important. I need to make sure that it's running well. I need to make sure the transactions are flowing through, that we've got good quality site visits, we've got web page performance all working. So build a page focused on that display. We use Atlassian for one of our wikis and for our code repository. I need to make sure that they're up. I need to make sure that they're working well. So here I've got a custom brand new page that was built to show out the information relevant for that. So whether it's the fact of how the host server is performing, whether actually, because this is a web application, I've got the performance of the web pages. So we're using, in this case, the Web Performance Monitor module, and we're traversing through a number of pages. So immediately I can identify if that's running poorly. I've also got that in chart form in the top right. You know, that presentation layer is the single most important metric that we can capture. Yeah? What is the quality of the performance of the service to our users? Then underneath that, I've got displays showing other things. So here, for example, I've seen that we've got what have we got? Read latency. And that's on our data store where our database sits. And here we are identifying how the performance of the database server is where this database is hosted. So immediately I can identify from this chart the wait times by database. Well, okay, we've got ones on some of our SolarWinds Orion servers. We've got it on ARM. The numbers aren't particularly big. It's all fine, but I've got the visibility. If this suddenly got a big spike here, as we've got, well, okay, this was when we were building out this server or making some changes or doing something. We would then investigate. This is, again, an observed metric that will allow me to navigate and identify. Also, things like changing the default pages. So out of the box, when you add SQL Server to SAM, SolarWinds is providing you this page layout. Again, we've got loads of unused space over here, and I've got a placeholder for a map. I've got the only really useful objects on here are the alerts and this list. Well, okay, if we have more there, that would be useful. But then as I scroll down, I've got lots of data which is kind of confusing, and I haven't got clarity. So we want to lay this out better. We want to bring this data into a format which is more appropriate to us. And so when we're looking at this, I've just realized that I've changed my monitor resolution to what we normally have in our office. So here we can see that we've got key metrics. I can see, in this case, some weight issues. I can see that I've got some advisories from DPA telling me that I need to go and do some investigation. I've got the fact that my server performance status, the quality has gone down to 50% today. Well, I've been playing around getting some demo scenarios in place so we get to see something more than just a big green button. So all of this is about making this work for, in this case, a DBA. when a DBA comes into this page, I want to make sure that they have a very quick insight into health, performance, status. So I'm giving them immediate access to the SQL error log. I'm providing visibility of weights. Well, here's a big impact change that took place over here. Okay, that's going to need investigation. I've got side tabs because I'm providing specific analysis for, in this case, more deep dive on wait times, on top queries, on core performance metrics. I've built this page in a way which that user, that person with that specific role, is able to come in and efficiently identify, okay, I've got some performance, I've got some stability issues. I'm going to use this as a catalyst to investigate in more detail. And just to finish, I think I want to show quite a lot of things like the morning checklist page and the alert analysis page. It's just kind of bringing this information to the fore. Yeah, if you're generating your alerts, which you are, analyze them. So let's say we can put this in place for our customers. We can give them the visibility of where your alert generation is taking place from. That this analysis allows me to start tuning. Okay, immediately I know that I'm over alerting, or my thresholds are wrong, or I've got objects being monitored that shouldn't be. 75 alerts a day for VM disk latency. I need to go and fix that. Yeah, I need to make sure that that doesn't happen. And on our morning checklist page, again, when we speak to customers, if you're going in the morning, you're going through systems and you're capturing data, put all of that on one page. Bring it all together. Do I want then to say, come up and save this as a PDF so I've got a record of it that I can submit to the business and confirm I've done my morning checklist, all good. These are the issues that are found, whatever the outcome, so we can get on with other more important work. Okay, I'm conscious of time. Scott, have we had any questions come through? We have now.
We have, yeah. We've got one really powerful stuff. We've got another poll, which we'll be really keen to get everyone's feedback on. And we've got some questions that have come through. So perhaps if I take back control and present and get us onto the poll. So this one is on how much customization have you done to your SolarWinds platform. So now that we've seen all that, I'd be really keen to see the responses that we're getting through. And as we're getting those, everyone's sort of responding to that poll, I can pose some of these questions to you. So we've had a few questions through. Is Netpath truly between two endpoints only, or is the Orion server part of that path that makes up the metrics?
Okay, so let me bring that up on screen while I talk about it very quickly. So Netpath, essentially you're saying, I want to start from this source.
Hang on a second, Mark. I'm not sure if our viewers will be able to see that with the poll.
Oh, no, because you're doing the poll. Apologies. Yes, thank you.
I'll round up the poll and we'll get through the questions. Sorry. So we've got.
Without it being on the screen, but to answer the question, Netpath, you install an agent on a location in your network where you want to say, I want to start from this point. There is one automatically provided on the Orion server, so often that is used. But we advise that the customer identifies, well, where have we got a machine that's representative on your user network? Okay. Install the agent on it. That has connectivity to the endpoint over the TCP port you want to use, and it will then go to that target. So whatever your network definition is, whatever your routing policies are, your connectivity, it will then follow that. So this is a genuine TCP port connection. We're not doing a GET request. We're not doing protocol level stuff. We are literally just making a TCP port connection. So source to destination, and you control where that source exists, and you also obviously define where that destination should be to.
Perfect. It looks like we've got two other questions. I'm not sure if we'll be able to answer all of them due to time, but it looks like we've got the results of our poll in now, which is showing that I think the vast majority have done some customization to the platform. Then there's 3% that have done no customization, 24% that have made some customizations, and 24% who have done a lot of customization. So I'll ask you another question then. can we use SolarWinds to find trends across the whole estate? Can I find out which minor applications are consuming high resources? For example, is our antivirus consuming too much resource?
Okay, so there's a couple of avenues here. I'll be very brief because I'm cognizant of time. So yes, fundamentally, the principle here is, are you collecting that data? So there's two approaches. You may have seen on the example alert that I had, where if you're, say, for example, you're monitoring SQL Server and you see the CPUs running high on that service or that server, the action that you could generate in the alert is that you send, as part of the data on the alert, what the top running processes are. So at that time that the incident is in play, high CPU, capture the the applications that are consuming the most CPU on that device, provide that in your alerting output, and now you can identify that in that manner. Alternatively, if you know that you want to monitor how your AV processes are working, then create a template or assign one of the default templates that is going to monitor that service. If we're capturing that data, then we have the trends. There's very few data metrics that Orion collects, which is kind of that kind of moment in time. Most of it is going to have the historic data. So absolutely, depending on what you want to report on from a trend, there is going to be the ability to look at that in the here and now. Yep, something's broken, go and fix it. Or the observability over a period of time, so you can then say, okay, there is a clear trend of growth here. We're going to hit a glass ceiling in 3 months' time, so we need to plan now for more bandwidth or for more storage or more compute resource. And there are many different areas of Orion that will provide that.
We have one final question, but I'm not sure if it's one that we'll be able to answer within our time constraints. So I'll put it to you anyway. Our viewers, I'd be keen to find out how to automate the adding of new servers nodes on creation of the server, and also the automatic cleanup when being decommissioned.
Yeah. So there is a very rich and powerful API in Orion. And so in this scenario, typically this is going to be part of your ITSM layer. So maybe as part of your change management workflow, you're adding a new device, you tick the box that says, yes, this should be monitored by Orion, and that triggers a workflow process that then automatically adds that to Orion. Absolutely can be done. I've done it for customers. Very useful thing. That also leads into things like maintenance windows. So in your ITSM platform, 4-hour maintenance window on Tuesday the 15th, bang, okay, that's going to automatically map into Orion, so you don't have to go into Orion and change those settings. And the same on the decom process, the decommission process. If a device is going to be decommissioned, it's put into that status in your ITSM platform. That then is the trigger to generate the API call, puts it into an unmanaged state in Orion, and 3 months later, another automation script then says, okay, any device is greater than 3 months old, 6 months old, now delete it from Orion. The reason we suggest that is actually, just to be clear, is that data can be used in historic reports. So rather than just throwing all of the data away and it's being excluded from reports, we can see in our availability reports, in our utilization reports, that data still has relevance. I hope that answers the question.
I hope so. It's answered it for me, but obviously, if any of our, that sort of brings us to the end of our webinar. So if anyone has any further questions they think of after this, or wasn't able to view the whole thing and wants to view it on YouTube, you're welcome to do so. You can also contact us with any, if that didn't answer your question, or you have any further questions, or it's an area you're interested in looking further into. But for us, I believe that brings us to a close. Thank you all very much. And you can see the areas where you can sort of find us to find some more details. So thank you all.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.